pleasure to do, something I have not done in 7 months. I did my first flight on an airplane. So I am tuning into you right now from North Carolina. And just do me a favor, if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up, because I am attempting to do headphones and I want to make sure that they are working. So just give me a little thumbs up, make sure that you can hear me. And at that point, I'm going to introduce our special guest tonight. So let's see. Again, can you hear what I'm saying? Give me the thumbs up, guys. All right, good. So tonight, our special guest is Leah Jack. Leah is the Vice President of Design for Brintons Americas in all of the Americas. So the United States, Canada, and South America. She has her finger on the pulse of all of the beautiful Axminster carpets that are being designed for your hospitality projects, as well as some marine and multifamily, all kinds of things. So I'm going to patch her in right now, and she'll be teleporting into this broadcast from Las Vegas, Nevada. Hello, gorgeous. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great. Oh, I'm so glad we got to get this to work. You look fabulous. Look at your blue. So speaking of color and design, you look amazing. I know we did our test run before, but it is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much. How was your flight?
You know what? I had a lot of anxiety about it, to be honest. I was like the mask police. Like anytime I would see somebody with their mask below their nose, I would kind of freak out. Lydia's saying, "Hi, Leah, your hair looks gorge." It does. It's so fabulous. I'm like just coming off. I was double masked, and but I made it. I'm here. We're good. I'm so excited to talk to you and to tune in and just to connect with all of the faces for the people who are tuning in with us tonight. So again, if you're just tuning in, this is the gorgeous, really funky and fabulous Leah Jack, who is the Vice President of Design for Brintons Axminster. She oversees the Americas. So tell us, we're going to talk all things color design and trend over the next half hour. So tell me, we're so excited to hear what you're seeing on the design front, because I know, so much has changed, and you and I were speaking, it's rare that in this industry you really get to work together for so many years and to watch each other's careers evolve and also to watch the industry evolve. But you and I were chatting, we've worked together for over a decade already, so not to give your age away at all, because you obviously started when you were 12, but we've got to witness the industry shift as well, not just for the short-term trend, but truly over many, many years of forecasting and watching how things evolve. So what's your take? What are you seeing?
Yeah, like we were talking this morning, I've been in this industry for 25 years, and when I think back to when I started, had trends coming through, and I did fashion at college, fashion, textiles, and photography. And I started as a trainee carpet designer, and you'd see every year these trends coming through, and you get all your magazines, and you all gather around, and you put all the pictures out the magazine boards and things. But there was always that, like who are deciding these trends? Like, who are the people making these decisions? As a 19-year-old. I didn't really know anything about it.
Right, it was like The Devil Wears Prada, right? Remember that movie?
Yeah, and that's it. I was thinking about that the other night, that whole line from Stacy, where he's basically telling Anne Hathaway, like, what you're wearing right now comes down this chain.
I think it was Cerulean Blue.
Funnily enough. When we started to look at doing new collections and things, that's really how we would start. And you could see the fashion trends would start on the runways, Paris, Milan, London runways, New York. They would slowly trickle down through into retail,
right.
And then you saw it in the stores and everything like that. And
Sorry, I have a tickle.
Are you
I've got the Zoom thing down pat.
You think?
I know. I'm okay. I was so excited about the trends. Go ahead.
So yeah, you would see these trends coming through from fashion, and then they would hit the retail, and then they would come into hospitality. So at that point, when we were looking at putting collections together, you were almost a little bit behind because you were working on what was coming through now and not really forecasting. But a lot of the projects that we were doing back then in the UK, for like small pubs and clubs, you would be doing stock collections for those types of events. We did do hotels, we did Marriott hotels, Hilton hotels, and like we said this morning, like you could walk into a Marriott hotel and not know that's where you were. Carpet,
right?
All their brand identity and their carpets were red, green, and gold. Like you knew exactly where you were
for like a decade.
Yeah,
they owned that color palette. And anyone who's tuning in, give us a thumbs up if you've been in this industry long enough to have lived through the Marriott red, green, gold. I mean, at some point it merged into sort of like a burgundy, hunter green, harvest gold. We're getting hearts, so they understand it. But yeah, color really did, sort of create, like you said, a brand identity for that hotel brand.
It did, yeah. And coming up to today's trend, you're not really seeing a very strong brand identity like that in hospitality. You probably are in casinos, because I know casinos have a very strong color brand identity. But
yeah, give us an example of that. Who's still holding on to a color brand right now?
Caesars have a very strong color brand with Caesars Palace, and with Harrah's casinos, they have their purple, their blue, their pops, their casinos. So they've got very strong identities, and it's all over the literature. But yeah, on the hospitality, it's now becoming more about the story, the location. It's all about the guest and the traveller. So companies, the interior designers, the architect firms, they're really focusing on the local story. And I think that really helps give a brand authenticity as well. So that, if you walk into a hotel in Texas, they're going to draw the story from that town that it's based.
And I think that's been, we've seen that and you can hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. We've seen that for many years, like you said, over kind of the arc of how trends have evolved, that locale has played such a big part in creating that narrative of what the property is going to look like. But I guess my question too is, are we losing something in terms of brand narrative, right? Because, and I've sort of argued this over the last at least 5 years, is to say, from the guest experience, it's all lovely. However, am I loyal to a brand at that point? Sort of what is, separating one brand from another? And I think there's room in the market for sort of carving out something that's uniquely theirs, right? So sort of what is it that makes me know, hey, today I'm in a Cambria versus, a Hyatt Place, versus something else.
Yeah, and it's interesting is that because I think if you are the guest, you probably know which brands you like to go to. So if you traveling, you might want to stay at Sheraton or a Marriott or a Hyatt, and because they are focusing their brands in terms of interiors towards that guest, they walk in and they instantly feel comfortable. They know where the bar is, and they where like the areas are, and they know what their room's going to look like. They might work out of their room for us.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that is one of the places that they've really spent a lot of time thinking about in terms of trying to carve out something special. Is probably shifted more away from color palette specifically and more to, like you said, sort of the sleep story, right? What is the bed like?
Yeah, Yeah, and also going back to the story that I started with, where through, the hotels were very different from now. People were, they wanted to feel familiar, as though you were still at home, but like elevated and looked
Right.
So yeah, it's almost like everything's kind of like blended a lot more. But the one thing I like is that I know we're talking about graduate as well,
Yeah.
and they have, even though they don't have necessarily a strong color direction, they definitely have a strong design direction.
Oh yeah.
A boutique brand, and I know the carpets that we've done for them are so much fun. They like to take a very traditional palette, whether it's Persian, Turkish, and then they play in on these fun elements that bring the story of the local area. I know we're looking at doing one in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
References from like Fiona the hippopotamus, who's a baby hippo there. They had the Cincinnati Hilly. They had Hobbs and Ali Harper that came from Cincinnati. And they were trying to pull in these little characters into the carpet, which I thought was really good, really fun.
It is. I mean, I think, it's funny because we had discussed, but I interviewed Andrew, who was their former creative director. So if you're interested in that one, scroll down after this interview and you can see it on my IGTV. And he does speak a lot about the design narrative, but almost how their goal was to create sort of something that you'd have to be an insider, like you'd have to be a local. They wanted to get that granular on the experience, that there'd be sort of tongue-in-cheek references on some of the design elements that like you wouldn't get unless you were really from there. And he said they would have locals who would ask, oh, did you grow up around here? And he's like, that's when I knew I did my job.
Yeah.
That's when I knew I really did a good job at kind of unearthing the stories and unearthing, the insiders' knowledge base of sort of the legends of the town. And I think that's super fun. So like you said, I mean, you're seeing sort of less of a specific brand color story and more of the idea of going local base, locale, and sort of what is the narrative of the property.
Yeah.
Right?
With those colours, we've now gone from the red, gold, green sort of scenario. Again, I don't want it to tell our age. When I started, the looms that were on, you could only really go up to 8 colours.
Yeah.
Now, with that advancement of technology and the looms and everything, we're not limited anymore. We don't have to do the traditional field border outfill panels or anything like that.
Oh, I remember when we the first collection we did, that it was like it didn't have borders and it was like earth shattering. Right?
Yeah,
exactly. That was with you. That was Nouveau Boho. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah. That's when I joined Brintons as a field in Dallas, Texas. And that whole collection at that time really blew my mind because we were just starting to get into this point where we could use 12, 24, 32
right.
colours. Brintons actually 30 colours, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and we were talking about sort of how you can use that. Like you said, it's not necessarily carnival, but how are you seeing trends like in using these colors, like corralling the 32 colors?
Yeah, so now you can create the beautiful gradient. And I know from working with you, your team on your collections, like I said, it was mind-blowing when I first came over to America because we were so used to almost hand-drawing everything, and we didn't really work in layers there. You might have top pattern and then like a mottled background. If you wanted something to look like marble or brass, you had to hand-draw that in. And
right.
now, these days, everything is in layers, so we've started to see a lot of that almost like Photoshop, Illustrator sort of thing come through, culture come through, and we're all working in layers. And I coined the phrase flat and fill, which was from just looking at that first collection that you did and the layers that went with that. And it was so interesting to see how the designer would start off with flat in, like they do in pattern design.
Yes.
And then they would add in like the texture gradients to then give it that
Yeah.
For me, because then you can start to create a larger palette with really nice gradients of colours, create something three-dimensional and create a gradient, but then within that you can drop in textures, change colour.
Yeah.
It makes, you can design something in 12 colours, and if you're really smart with your colour choice and placement, you can make that look like it has 32 colours.
Right, yeah, with the way it blends. But like you said, even with 32 colors, typically, like, you're able to really build out kind of the depth of the carpet, because even though the overall imagery might only appear like a 3 or a 4 or 5 color design, because you're really dealing in color families.
Yes, yes.
So that you're able to kind of, like you said, get the darks to the lights and really not have it look pixelated. It's really gotten so sophisticated. You know, the technology is driving some of the trends that you're seeing in design as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're now designing things that are a one-off pattern for a ballroom, which 300, 400 across, and there's no pattern repeat in there. I mean, it's insane.
It's like artwork for the floor.
Completely, and it's really nice to see that now, because again, when I started, carpet designers were almost like last on everybody's list. It was, you know, they would start with wall coverings and the fabrics, and then they would go to the manufacturer and they would either take it off the shelf or look at covers. But we were all designers. We never really got to speak to or the interior designer. We were like just in our little sort of goldfish bowl bubble sort of thing, and just
right.
We never had the whole story. And now, you know, we can talk direct to designers. We can go to site. We can take photographs. You know, we can get the whole design narrative and know exactly what the lighting looks like, artwork.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like changes the whole thing when you can design something in context. Like, even if you are a product designer looking at your specific piece of the puzzle, when you have context to what you're designing and sort of where it's going to live and what other elements it's with, and like you said, what's the location and what's the story, it gives you so much more insight into making it right on the first go round. And, you know, I think that whole idea, and we were talking about this a little bit too, but the whole idea of collaboration, it, you know, really, when you bring the parties together and you can explain what the goal is and sort of how it's going to live in that context, and really collaborate with the interior designers that are working on the project, and, you know, and or the property managers, and like you said, I mean, even outside designers like our studio, it's amazing how great the design process can be. And then it's not just about what the end product is. It's really sort of the process of developing something that's so much cooler than anyone could have done on their own.
Totally. I always say to any new designer coming into carpet design, you have to like the process. You have to enjoy the process, embrace the process, you know, really build those relationships with the clients. I mean, I've got some great friendships out of you know, building those relationships with clients and yourself and your team as well. You know, and it's
yeah. Well, the feeling is mutual, but you know, it's funny because I think that all of that, like you said, that whole process that goes into it becomes part of the narrative at the end, right? So, sort of, you know, the interior designer or the hotel owner or property manager, somebody's starting with the concept, right? This is what we want it to feel like in the end. But all the different pieces that go into building that property ultimately become part of that narrative once the property opens its doors. So, you know, it's fun when you do bring that collaborative process together, and the, you know, hopefully it makes its way to the guest where they understand, you know, the carpet was, you know, custom made, and like you said, it has no repeat. It's almost a work of art for the floor. It's manufactured with 100% wool, you know, the whole story that goes into it, 32 colors, you know, really becomes part of it, where it is something special. You know, the end result is something special for every property, because there's really, especially for public space, almost nothing that's really stocked except the arms.
And that can also help the brand. You know, you can have that, and then you might see on Instagram photographs from that specific area, and then people know that what hotel that is. You know,
right.
They know that, oh, that's the design that's all over Instagram, and I know that it's that hotel.
Yeah, for sure. No, we've definitely seen some of that. I mean, there were some really cool projects that we did where our product ended up like in historic Art Deco properties. I think there was one in London. So it became part of, like you said, that whole storytelling, which is super fun. So I know we talked that, textures have been so big, right? A lot of, and we've designed some of them in our new collections as well, where it's sort of fractured patterns and very organic. We're still seeing that obviously on our end through our studio as a trend that we think is important, especially now, people's desire to bring nature in, right? So these sort of really serene textures, really beautiful, easy to live with. But what else are you seeing in terms of trend? Do you think there's going to be a return to more classical pattern?
We do occasionally see traditional designs coming through, and they're usually done in colours that you would never imagine they'd be done in. That they've obviously coloured it in different colour schemes, traditional way.
Right.
They might mix them with geometric patterns or more organic shapes. I have been seeing a little bit of the distressed antique kind of style.
Yeah.
Where the design is almost like ebbs and flows through the property, and it looks like it's been in a few areas. We're still seeing a lot of that kind of coming through.
Yeah.
But I mean, are you seeing anything like strong design?
On our end, on the residential side, we're seeing a ton of Persian looks. So, kind of that return to really traditional Persian rugs, borders and all. They don't all look distressed. We're seeing some of them that look, brightly colored, and some obviously that pastels are coming back on the residential side. But are you seeing any of that on the hospitality side yet? Because I do see more of a marriage, between, like you said earlier, residentials influencing hospitality and vice versa. I mean, you have, major disruptors still like Airbnb, where the whole experience is just a combination.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm still seeing a lot of those pastel colours, but they're a tiny little bit more saturated carpet design just because of the coverage. I don't think people need to necessarily go darker with colours. It would be nice if we still keep it moving forward into the the new year and everything. But yeah, that was always a strange trend for me that came through, and it was those pastel colours that were drawn from like desert landscape.
Right.
Saw that a lot last year at the trade shows, but that kind of marriage of the rust and the green was very 90s. I mean, it was a more modern interpretation of it, but I remember seeing that in the late 90s where everything was like potter and green, and
yep.
I'm seeing these trends come back round because I know there's a resurgence of 80s.
I was going to say, are you seeing that? Are you seeing that whole kind of Memphis look in carpet, or is nobody committing to it really?
Not just yet. I mean, we're still working on a lot of projects because some of our projects, they could take a couple of years before this place. So again, it's you try to get in front of a lot of. I don't think it's that important.
I know. I think it's more of like a crowd pleaser at a trade show, or a good marketing hook.
You can bring those pops of colours in the soft furnishings. You don't, because even though this year it's like the Pantone colour of the year is classic blue, which is,
I know. I'm telling you, you're inspiring me. I'm a little jelly of the hair. It's really good. You're getting lots of compliments. I think it's definitely more important than any of the other trends we're talking about. And it just makes me happy to look at. So, and it actually looks beautiful with your coloring, by the way.
I terrify my husband every time I come back from the south.
I love it. I love it. I know. I said you've been pink, purple, now you're blue. This is really, really gorgeous. One of the things I was talking to a colleague of ours, again, more residential, but really I think was going to be overarching. I mean, we have lived in a neutral world for a decade, over a decade at this point. Grays started in 2008. We started to see them emerge, with the dot-com burst. Then now we're seeing neutrals. I'm so happy to finally be seeing some warm neutrals, some sandy colors come back, and taupes and warmer woods, beautiful things like that. But I do feel like color is going to start to bubble up again. Like we are just going to, all of a sudden it's going to be like, somebody opened the spigot and color is going to be back.
Yeah, I really, it's funny. I was listening to a podcast last week, and they were talking about club kitchen. You remember, like, where that was all like almost performance art, where the colors were really bright and crazy.
Yeah.
And I know Lady Gaga, my favorite Lady Gaga. She's
right.
championing the whole like performance art, bright colors and things like that. So I mean, that would be fantastic.
I think it's the pick-me-up for people too, right? Like, it's a really inexpensive way to just sort of go, I'm going to be happy, like it or not.
Oh, I've always really liked, when you're working with a palette and you're trying to get the most out of a small palette, I always like seeing how the colours play off each other. So I love to see how, like, a turquoise sits with a red, and how they really play off each other. If you could take that same turquoise and you could almost use it as part of a blue gradient,
right?
Like, then it becomes very subdued. But if you bring that out next to a bright red, it's like it's suddenly.
Oh yeah.
So exciting to work with colours like that and really try and get the most, so that they're not just used in one place, that they can suddenly be transformed, putting them next to another colour.
Yeah, I also think that there's room in the palette, let's say, for some of the more rich, earthy colors. So we were seeing those huge in Heintex this past year. And Wild Child saying color makes people happy. I agree. But we were seeing these beautiful earth tones, like really rich, but definitely had a saturation to them.
Yes.
And we're starting to play with those in our studio. Are you seeing some of that come through as well?
Yes, to be honest, I don't really think they've ever gone away. But like you said, they're a lot more saturated, I think.
Yeah, less muddy.
Yeah, and you can still use them in a nice gradient, but then again, like you say, pull them out and they can be a standalone, like pop colour in the palette. But yeah, you just reminded me then, actually, talking about the earthy tones. I don't know if you've watched the new season of Ratchet.
No, I saw the promo for it, but no, I haven't. It's good.
The colour schemes, like on that first episode, is just breathtaking.
Okay, and I love that, like, that's going to bring us into our lightning round. I'm dying because you're watching, like, the new Netflix series, not for the content, but for the set design. I love that. That's the best. That's the best. I mean, I have other design friends, too, who will go back to sort of classic Hollywood films and sort of that, feed off of that as their inspiration. But I love that that's how you're, sort of viewing some of these new Netflix things. You're like, just binge it for the set. That's awesome.
I'm using my little Pantone app, putting the Pantone app on a still and trying to pull all the colors out of the scene.
Oh, I love that. All right, you heard it here, guys. That is an amazing tip from the Vice President of Design at Brintons Americas. Like, no wonder she is that creative. So anyway, we've learned a lot. It goes fast, which is what I promised you this morning. So we're almost out of time. We're going to go through our quick lightning round. So get ready. Fasten your seatbelts, okay?
Ready.
All right, Leah. So tell me, if you had to pick the Pantone color of the year for 2021, what do you think it's going to be?
Wow. Well, if you go historically, it's probably going to be a yellow tone.
Okay.
So, but I really, like you, really want this nice fresh green. And I know that they've had a few turquoise colors, so I think it's going to be more on the yellowy green side. Say chartreuse, because a lot of people worry about that color, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say chartreuse.
All right, I'm going to write that down, and we'll see if you're right. And if so, I'm going to send you some kind of chartreuse green gift, okay? If you got it right, there'll be a prize in it. All right, so during pandemic, tell me, have you been either cooking, binging, or reading? What have you been doing most?
Oh, I've been binging. I've been lost in so many, like Netflix, Amazon Prime, all those shows. Yeah, I've been completely lost.
Now, are you watching them purely for the aesthetic value, or are you watching them for content too?
A lot of them. I love true crime and anything to do with like forensics or anything like that. But I especially like, there's a few shows I'm watching at the moment that are based in like the 1800s, sort of around the like Jack the Ripper time.
Oh, what are you watching?
Penny Dreadful is fantastic. It's a little bit sort of sci-fi.
Okay.
So The Alienist, which I'm watching at the moment, which I think has been around for a while. And I'm also fallen down this like vampire theme, and I don't know whether it's because we're Halloween.
Right.
I'm all over What We Do in the Shadows. That whole series of film was amazing, but it just,
and that's a Netflix show as well.
No, I think it might be FX or Hulu or something like that. But
okay.
Yeah, What We Do in the Shadows is awesome.
That's a good one. All right, I'm watching Turn right now, which is about George Washington's spies, so that's pretty good too. And I will say, sort of like you, there's some scenes where I'm like, look at the colors that they've painted, all the trim work, like it's gorgeous. I mean, super historical, but love it. So amazing. All right, well, we are out of time. Thank you so much for your insight and for joining me. It is so much fun to see you. You look fabulous. I'm telling you, I miss you because it's like we normally catch up twice a year at the trade shows, so it is so good to see your face. I'm so glad you got to show off this gorgeous hair color, and you're inspiring me to buy a funky wig. This is like, this was my travel wig. So you're inspiring me. I have to get some fun colors in the repertoire.
I really appreciate your time. I've really enjoyed this. It's been nice just to chat about colour and design. It doesn't happen that often.
Oh, I know. It's so fun. So Sheep Date, I think this has to be a Brintons person, but she says, or he says, you are fab, Leah.
Thank you.
I know. I never know by people's handles who it really is.
Our sales director, Corey, I think.
Oh, hi, Corey.
I don't know.
Corey, Sheep Date, give us a thumbs up if it's Corey in Colorado. And yes, we're getting hearts, so I think it is RJ Drawn Studio. And Lydia, well done, gals. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate all of you. Thank you for tuning in and spending some time with us this Monday evening. It's a good way to kick off the week, get some inspiration, and, you're hearing it from just a true color and design expert. So, Leah Jack, thank you again for joining me. And, yes, we'll see you soon, hopefully in person next time. Bye, everyone. I know. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.